Thank you, everyone, for joining today's Community of Practice for Inclusive Career Pathways. My name is Shannon Edom, and I'm a project coordinator with WinTAC. Listening to the meeting. The audio for today's meeting can be accessed using computer audio or by calling in by phone. If you select computer audio, please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer or prefer to listen by phone, please dial 1-929-205-6099. The meeting code is 595-906-428. Real-time captioning is provided during this meeting. The captions can be found by clicking on the CC button at the bottom of the screen. If you do not see the captions after clicking the button, please alert the host via the chat box. You may also view captions in your browser at www.streamtext.net/player?event=NDI. For Q&A, please use the chat box to send any questions you have during the meeting, and we will direct the questions accordingly during the Q&A portion. If you are listening by phone only, you may email questions to Shannon Edom at sedam@ndi-inc.org. You may also unmute yourself when invited to do so by the speaker. The mute button is at the lower left-hand side of the screen. Please remember to remute yourself when you are finished speaking. This meeting is being recorded, and materials will be posted at wintech.org and leadcenter.org. If you experience any technical difficulties during the meeting, please use the chat box to send a message to the host, WinTech NDI, or email Shannon Edom at sedam@ndi-inc.org. Our first speaker today is Nikki Powis, and she'll introduce the Community of Practice.
Thanks, Shannon. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. I was just making sure I had unmuted from all the places that needed to be. Okay, so just wanted to let everybody know, if this is your first time to the meeting, welcome. If it's not, then great to have you back. This Community of Practice does support and share ideas and insights into how to really plan, implement, and engage in career pathways to increase those opportunities for individuals with disabilities. We have meetings every other month, and we have different topics and resources. We're always really happy to hear from you, our audience, on what it is that you want to hear. We've invited you to message us. You can put that in the chat, or if you have joined our Community of Practice online through the wintech.org site, there's a way that you can actually send us a message through that and let us know what it is you want to hear about. We've heard from folks that one of the things that is important is more resources on how to really engage and how to help move the folks that you work with forward into career pathways, especially individuals with disabilities. So the last couple of meetings, we've focused on those resources, and today certainly is along those lines as well. Also do invite you to join us on the Community of Practice online at wintech.org, because it's an opportunity for you to interact with your peers across the country. And there is a forum on there that you can tell us what you want, and so that we can be responsive to you, but also that you can connect with others as well. So just wanted to bring that out. So go ahead and move to the next slide then for us, Shannon. And here is your technical assistance team. We are actually a collaboration between the Lead Center, WinTAC, which is the Workforce Innovation Technical Assistance Center, and the Southeast ADA Center. So here we have Rebecca, Brian, myself, Nikki Powis, and Pam Williamson, and you can see our organizational affiliation on the slide. If you Lead Center for Rebecca, Brian and I for WinTAC, and Pam with the Southeast ADA Center. You want to go forward for us? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over quickly to Rebecca so that she can just let you know a little bit about the Lead Center.
Oh, thanks so much, Nikki and Shannon. So the Lead Center, if you're not familiar with us, is the National Center on Leadership for the Employment and Economic Advancement of People with Disabilities. We're a collaborative of disability, workforce, and economic empowerment organizations led by National Disability Institute with funding from the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy. And we exist to advance sustainable individual and systems level change to result in improved competitive integrated employment and economic self-sufficiency outcomes for people across the spectrum of disabilities. And this slide gives you all of the ways that you can contact us and stay up to date on the activities of the LEAD Center. Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks a lot, Rebecca. And WinTech, Workforce Innovation Technical Assistance Center, and Brian is going to jump in and tell you all about what we do.
Is funded through the Rehabilitation Services Administration and supports state vocational rehabilitation agencies and their partners in effectively implementing the requirements of WIOA. I'd like to invite you to visit our website at www.wintech.org, where you're going to find a wealth of information and resources. Also, the forum and place where you can interact with us and with your colleagues around the country is housed on our site. And we welcome new members at any time. If you're a VR agency not yet working with us or who wants to contact us, you can also find a list of technical assistance liaisons like myself and Nikki for each state on our site. How's that, Nikki? I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thanks. Okay, and now we'll go to Pam to give us a little overview of the Southeast ADA Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pam Williamson, and I am with the Southeast ADA Center. We are a project of the Burton Blatt Institute at Syracuse University. We're also a member of the ADA National Network and funded by the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. We and the other 9 centers in the ADA National Network provide information, training, and guidance on the Americans with Disabilities Act and disability access. And we provide services to anyone, including employers, individuals with disabilities, state and local government agencies, including VR professionals, and private businesses. We also conduct research to reduce and eliminate barriers to employment and economic self-sufficiency and to increase the civic and social participation of Americans with disabilities. We're very excited to partner with WinTech and LEAD on today's informative session and look forward to hearing from you.
Perfect, thanks so much. Okay, so we are so excited, and I'm super excited myself because I haven't even seen this yet. We're going to give a little introduction to the newly created Inclusive Career Pathways Roadmap that was developed by the LEAD Center in coordination, I believe, with some other folks helping. So let's just jump to Rebecca's bio if we could, Shannon. Okay, so our speaker is Rebecca Salon with the LEAD Center, and she is the Project Director for the National Center on Leadership for Employment, or LEAD. She's a recognized national leader in policy and program development with an emphasis on cutting-edge demonstration that really promotes economic self-sufficiency and employment for folks with significant disabilities. She has many, many years in the field, over 25 with management of federally funded programs and over 35 years working with people across the spectrum of disability. She also works at the District of Columbia Department on Disability Services, where she's the lead for the DC's Employment First program initiative, which is focused on creating opportunities for employment, community inclusion, and economic self-sufficiency for youth and adults in the District of Columbia. We are really lucky to hear from Dr. Salon and also to have her as a part of our planning and design team for this community of practice. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Rebecca. I'm so excited to hear about the roadmap.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nikki. And I think I'm going to switch screens now so that you'll be able to see the roadmap. So just give me 1 second, and I'm hoping that you can all see something that looks like a roadmap. Is that true?
Yes, it's there, Rebecca.
Great. Okay. We actually wanted to start with a little poll before we jump into the specifics of the roadmap. So if I could ask Shannon to put up a couple of polling questions that we thought would be helpful in part to guide the discussion.
For this one, no.
Okay, so there are 3 yes/no polling questions. If you could, each for those of you who are on computer, I know some of you may be joining by phone, but if you're on computer, if you could just check yes, no, or I don't know in a couple of places. The 3 questions are you working with the career pathways programs in your state or region? The second is, have you read your state's career pathways plan? And the third is, does your jurisdiction's career pathways task force or work group discuss accessibility? So we're just going to give you a couple minutes to be able to share your answers to those questions. And I'll wait until the numbers stop changing.
And Rebecca, it looks like a couple of folks have said that they're not seeing the survey pop up. So, you know, maybe would you also be okay with them putting something in the chat? I don't know, you may have to repeat the questions then though, but.
Sure. But there's at least 57 people who I'm not sure why they wouldn't, unless there's some pop-up blocker or something that might be blocking it. But yes, if people do want to respond, the questions again are you working with the career pathways programs in your state or region? Yes, no, or I don't know. The second was, have you read your state's career pathways plan? And that's either a yes or no. And does your jurisdiction's career pathways task force or work group discuss accessibility? And that also was yes, no, and I don't know. And I think people who do have access to this have pretty much finished voting. So for those of you who can't see this, I apologize, and we'll have to figure out why that is. But in terms of whether or not people are working with the career pathways programs in their region, 30% said yes, 47%, so almost half, said no, and 23% said that they didn't know, which means that people may not be clear as to which programs are considered career pathways programs. So important answers. To the question of have you read your state's career pathways plan, 31% said yes, 69% said no. So another important piece of information, every state, every jurisdiction has a career pathways plan. So as you're a member of a career pathways community practice, it would be important to track that down. It's probably on a website that your Workforce Development Board has, or Workforce Investment Council, or whatever the workforce board is in your state, but you should be able to access it. And the third question is, does your jurisdiction's career pathways task force or work group discuss accessibility? So 23% said yes, they do. 3% said no, and 73% said that they didn't know, which I would read into that people may not know what happens at those meetings. And again, there are work groups or task forces that meet regularly that are the career pathways partners in your region or state. Those meetings typically are open to the public. Chances are vocational rehabilitation has a seat at the table at those meetings, but it would be, you know, another area that would be important to become involved in. And we're hoping that the resources that we talk about today will give you information that you'd be able to share with those kinds of groups. So we can close the poll now and jump into the career pathways roadmap. And I guess I can do that. I guess I did that. Okay. This is new technology for me, so I'm excited that so far it's mostly working. So this clearly is an important topic to people, the creation of inclusive career pathways. We had close to 400 people sign up for for this webinar, and this webinar really is just a preview, so that really speaks to the fact that this is important. I also know from participating in previous community practice meetings that you've had discussions about the Career Pathways Toolkit that's posted on Workforce GPS that was developed to align with WIOA's vision and requirements. It's a fabulous toolkit. It was developed to support states as they were developing their state plans and to support systems in a way that's very comprehensive and useful. But as our team at Lead Center was out working with workforce partners from many different sectors, the people that we work with identified the need for tools to assist practitioners and career pathways partners and other workforce development professionals in making their programs accessible to people with disabilities or to other people who experience barriers to employment, and to assist them in building productive partnerships, either with other WIOA partners, with employers, with community agencies, with whoever it was that they were working with. So that's kind of the background where this came from. So the Lead Center spent the last couple of years working with partners at American Job Centers, vocational rehabilitation, community colleges, adult education programs, community providers, centers for independent living, all of the partners that support people as they're seeking employment or economic advancement, and really worked to identify examples of promising practices and resources and other useful information that people in the field can use. And just as an aside, the Lead Center staff are all people who have worked for most of our careers in the field. So we've worked at AJCs and community employment providers and DD agencies and VR. And we know how precious the time is of people who are working directly in programs. And we also know that there are an overwhelming number of resources that are out there. So we wanted to create a tool that kind of narrowed the choices a bit and could still guide people to really useful resources. So this is designed to be that tool, to be user-friendly. And the more that we talked about career pathways, the more that we envisioned it as a road with a destination. So we created a roadmap and really had fun with the metaphor, as you'll see as we talk it through. So as you can see, it's a windy road that leads to the destination of employment and economic self-sufficiency. And along the road, there are traffic circles or roundabouts that can take you to places and then put you back onto the career pathway, back onto the road toward employment. So, and each traffic circle has a key area, a key driver to assist someone in creating inclusive career pathways. So as you can see, there's an employer connections traffic circle, one on supports for youth with disabilities, one on partnerships, one on accessibility, and another on capacity building, all that get you back onto the road. I want to point out that the roadmap that you're seeing is almost finished. So what you're seeing really is a preview of the roadmap. It will be finished and launched officially on February 20th. We're doing a 90-minute webinar that will feature some of our federal partners, as well as workforce staff and leaders who've contributed some of the best practices on the roadmap. And on the webinar, you'll get to see the roadmap's full functionality, and more importantly, get to hear from people who are implementing inclusive career pathways programs as they describe what they've done and how they think people might want to use the roadmap. And there'll be a registration link later in today's session if you're interested in joining that. So back to the roadmap metaphor. So if you look at the roadmap, roadmaps have keys. So we created a roadmap key, and I'm going to click on it here. And you'll see that once you select an area, so once you select employer connections or accessibility, once you click on any of the road signs along the way, you'll find each of these areas of information. So it will give you questions that you can ask yourself or you can ask your team to help you determine if you're effectively implementing that element of inclusive career pathways. It will give you actions that you can take, again, individually or as a team, that have been recommended in helping state or local workforce partners to learn more about how to positively impact employment for people who face barriers to employment. There's a section on examples from other regions that emphasize how this essential element is actually being implemented somewhere and how it's connected to expanding inclusive career pathways. And it'll give you a list of resources, which we've, again, tried to narrow down. So it's not an overwhelming list of resources, but really the resources that our partners and our team really felt were some of the best resources for you to look at. So we have, so you'll see these 4 icons, and you'll see these 4 areas in each of the places on the roadmap. So that's our roadmap key. Each traffic circle has 4 or 5 destinations, which we'll look at in a moment. But before we do that, you can see these are the destinations as you hover over any of these, but we'll go into more detail. But I wanted to point out that there's 2 roadside assistance billboards that are part of the Inclusive Career Pathways roadmap. So as you can see, we just kept running with this metaphor. So if you click on the need technical assistance, it's not opening. There it is. If you click on that billboard, it directs you to the Knowledge Translation Consortium page on Lead Center's website. So since 2012, we've had a Knowledge Translation Consortium that brings together, I think right now, 36 federally funded training and technical assistance centers that are focused on employment for people with disabilities in some way. So it's a one-stop place where you can go to get information from any of the federally funded technical assistance centers that are working on employment and disability. So if you're looking for technical assistance, if you're looking for free resources, webinars, presentations, research, data, you can click on that roadside assistance sign, click on the link here for the Knowledge Translation Consortium, and it'll take you there. So again, in trying to make this user-friendly and easy for people to access information, we give you a single site that you can go to look for information. The other one says, want to drive change. Again, running with the metaphor of a roadmap. And this one, we provide information about implementation science. And over the last couple of years, both WinTech and LEAD have been very focused on the science of making implementation work. And some of the staff that work in both technical assistance centers, really have put together some great information. There's the National Implementation Research Network has been studying what makes for successful implementation for decades at this point, so that there's an evidence base for, really looking at what drives change, what needs to happen for successful implementation. So we wanted to give you, again, 3 short resources. One of them is a PowerPoint presentation that you can scroll through. One is a 1-pager and one is a 2-pager that just talk about what is important to focus on as you're trying to create change, as you're trying to bring a new innovation or some new implementation, a new partnership together. And as luck would have it, the implementation science talks about drivers. So you can get information on the competency drivers, organizational drivers, and leadership drivers that drive change. So again, it's something to think about as you're pursuing your career pathways programs or building partnerships that are going to promote going to promote successful outcomes for people. So let's look at the 5 traffic circles for a second. So if we look at capacity building, and again, there's a hover, the site is fully accessible. So, so if people have visual or other limitations, they should still be able to use this. So under capacity building, we wanted to focus on areas that we believe have shown that they promote inclusive career pathways and get people to employment and economic self-sufficiency outcomes. So the areas that you can find under capacity building are customized employment, other promising practices, targeted technical assistance, and workforce incentives and benefits planning. And before I click on any of these, I just want to review the 5 different traffic circles. So those are the 4 off-ramps, if you will, that you'll find under capacity building. Under accessibility, there's an off-ramp for accommodations, one that focuses on AJC certification, and again, resources and actions and examples that would support certification, assistive technology, and the WIOA Section 188 Disability Reference Guide, which has a lot of examples in it that promote equal opportunity for people in the workforce system. The next one is partnerships. The partnerships focuses on co-enrollment and integrated resource teams, career pathways programs, focus any career pathways programs, not just inclusive career pathways programs, have a strong emphasis on partnerships, on co-enrollment, on leveraging resources across systems. Another area on cross-title and cross-system activities with examples on where that's working well, resource coordination, and employment for veterans. So that's what you would find under partnerships. Under youth with disabilities, a section on financial literacy, one on guideposts for success, one on partnerships that are specific to youth, and one on work-based learning. So again, all important areas for youth with disabilities. And the final area is employer connections, and that focuses on apprenticeships, on the job training and other work-based learning, a section on benefits to employers and return on investment. So information that would allow you to focus on how to make the business case to an employer, coordination between systems, so our career pathways partners collaborating on employer connections, and diverse and reverse career fairs, which is a promising practice that has been very effective in lots of places. So let me drill down for a minute and give you an example. So let's say that you're working with someone in vocational rehabilitation, and she's interested in a registered apprenticeship that's offered through your local American Job Center. Now, for her to be successful, she'll need some assistive technology, at minimum a screen reader and some dictation software, but possibly other software. Depending on the demands of the job, she may need, much more complicated things. So you're meeting with your AJC counterpart, you work in vocational rehabilitation, and they clearly are uncomfortable talking about assistive technology. So you can together, while you're meeting, go to the Lead Center's website. And I should point out, if you've been on Lead Center's website before, you'll recognize this blue bar across the top. So we've always had areas on WIOA and workforce development, customized employment, financial literacy and capability, and cross-system collaboration. On the 20th, because again, this is just a preview and it's not live yet, there will be this additional green button, the same color as the road signs, that says Road to Inclusive Career Pathways. And that's the button that would get you to this roadmap. So if in fact you're having this conversation, someone is really uncomfortable about assistive technology, you could go to accessibility, you can click on assistive technology, and it takes you to this page. And here are the questions to ask yourself, the actions that you can take, examples, and resources. So, you know, in this case, the questions, just to give you an idea of what this looks like, are: do all WIOA core partners know how to implement Section 188, which are the equal opportunity provisions of WIOA, in conjunction with the Americans with Disabilities Act, embedding it in policies and procedures, including reasonable accommodations and assistive technology? So that's a question that a Career Pathways work group could ask itself if that was something that they were focusing on. Another question is, do all WIOA core partners collaborate with VR and other disability organizations to support AJC certification, surveying, and continuous improvement? Because that likely would include a focus on assistive technology. It provides some actions that people can take, explore how WIOA leadership communicates to program staff about operationalizing policies in areas of physical, programmatic, and communication accessibility, and what training efforts have been deployed, including training on assistive technology. Explore levels of partnership with VR and other disability organizations to see what you can build on, you know, to look at what's being effectively implemented in the region. There's an example here, which is the Section 188 Disability Reference Guide, which has lots of examples of how the workforce system is using assistive technology to enable someone to be successful. And then there's a list of 6 resources. So I learned that although I can click on it and download one of the playlists, so there's a playlist on technology access for individuals with disabilities that was created by the Disability Employment Initiative. If you were to click on that, so again, because we're not fully functional yet, I can't show you exactly what that one would look like without losing this connection, but it gives you web pages and documents. It drives you to a document on funding for assistive technology, transitioning from secondary school to VR and work. So something on how funding might be available for youth that are transitioning from high school to VR and work. It links you to the Job Accommodation Network, which, again, as most of you probably know, have an enormous number of resources on assistive technology. It guides you to Partnership on Employment and Accessible Technology, PEAT, which is another technical assistance center that focuses on assistive and accessible technology in the workplace. And they have documents like Accessible Technology Action Steps, a guide for employers. They've stuff on universal design. So again, it gives you an idea of what you can access. So there are these playlists that have really useful information. There's a direct link to the Job Accommodation Network, a Career Pathways customer flow that includes an assessment of someone's need for assistive technology, a link to find information about your state's assistive technology program, and again, a link to Partnership on Employment and Accessible Technology, PEAT. So it would provide you with some resources right on the spot, you know, so that somebody could contact the Job Accommodation Network directly and find out information that might help this person that you're trying to serve jointly to get more information and to make people feel that they have the support. So we envision people using it in many different ways. Before I leave this page, I just wanted to direct your attention to the sidebar. So the sidebar has at the top the destination, Employment and Economic Self-Sufficiency. Right now we're in the accessibility part of the roadmap, and these are the 4 off-ramps. We had clicked on Assistive Technology, but from here, if you wanted to go to one of the other ones, you could do that directly, or you could decide that you're interested in going to capacity building and click on that. Scroll down a little, you can get to all of the different places on the roadmap from this sidebar, including the 2 roadside assistance signs. So it allows you to go back. You can hit the back button, or you can, click here, and it will get you back to the roadmap. I want to mention that this has been designed so that it will be accessible on any browser and on any platform. So right now I'm showing it to you from a laptop. It works on tablets. It's a little smaller on a tablet. It works on mobile devices, so you can pull it up on your handheld. Actually, what the sidebar looks like is more similar to what it looks like on a handheld. So it's much more linear because you have much less space, but it's been designed so you'd be able to access it on a number of different devices. Just looking at the time, so we can go back to the home page and maybe look at one more area, and then we wanted to open it up to questions or to hear your suggestions for things that you wish it would also include, whether or not you think it would be useful for different things. Again, we can't take you to every place on it in the time that we have available, but so why don't we do one of the partnership ones? I'm going to click on co-enrollment and integrated resource teams. So again, we have the same 4 areas. The questions are things like, do AJCs convene integrated resource teams or have a process for co-enrolling customers with disabilities who benefit from services from multiple systems to reach employment outcomes? So if you're in a work group and you want to get people to coalesce around an issue, it gives you some questions that you can ask yourself, a tiny mini needs assessment of where you might be. Do AJCs actively partner with diverse systems to serve customers with multiple support needs? Do the state equal opportunity officers collaborate with VR and other disability organizations and other WIOA partners to implement the equal opportunity and non-discrimination policies and practices that are required by WIOA? So important questions that would allow a work group or a career pathways task force to focus in on an area. A number of actions that you can take, and I'll just do this randomly. And the last one is to conduct resource mapping to identify potential partners, to learn how and if agencies proactively address the common myth that everyone is the funder of last resort. Find out if the following roles are represented on cross-partner committees: are equal opportunity officers, policy administrators, program managers, disability employment staff, and other partners across the spectrum of disabilities represented. So those are some actions, and it gives you 9 possible actions that you can take individually or can bring to a team that might be working on this. There are 3 examples. One is, again, the Section 188 Disability Reference Guide, which would give you a number of different examples of integrated resource teams and co-enrollments that support equal opportunity and employment outcomes. An example from Virginia's Accessibility and One-Stop Task Force for how they collaborate across different titles to address equal opportunity and access for people with disabilities. And there's a number of resources related to integrated resource teams. So those are examples of things that are actually happening. And then there's 6 resources at the bottom, including the Inclusive Career Pathways desktop guide, which we talked about a couple of community of practice meetings ago. That's, you know, just an easy to use reference for some of our favorite resources to promote career pathways. There's the Career Pathways Toolkit that's on Workforce GPS, guided group discovery and self-guided discovery that are resources that can bring different systems together to serve people. So those are, you know, those are 2 examples of what you'll find behind the homepage in terms of resources. As I mentioned, we're still working out some bugs and adding some final content, but on the 20th, I think it will be an opportunity to hear from Federal RSA about their Inclusive Career Pathways project and the relationship to the roadmap from Sarah Hastings, who has presented before and who coordinated the group that developed the Career Pathways Toolkit, and then from a number of states that we worked closely with that provided some of the examples and are doing a lot to implement what's happening. So I hope that you'll be able to join. If you do go to the Lead Center homepage and look for upcoming webinars, you can register that way, or there'll be a link shortly. But it'll give you a lot more information than I can do now, since we're not fully functional. So I think that's it. I'd love to, you know, hear suggestions or get questions.
We have several questions, Rebecca. I'm going to just mention a couple of things really quickly, because a couple of people have asked about CEUs and also certificates of attendance. These meetings don't offer CEUs. You did register, so you do have verification of registration. If you really need to verify your attendance, we are able to know that you attended. So if you emailed me, I could send you a verification email if that's something that you really, really need. Also, apparently, we have had a software glitch. And so if you have colleagues that have mentioned to you or are frustrated that they were unable to get on, apparently the software provider shut us down after a certain number. So we don't have our full number of registrants. So just sort of letting everybody know that in case you've got colleagues that, you know, are frustrated by that glitch. And we will be, as we've mentioned, posting the archive of this to both the leadcenter.org and wintac.org within the next day or 2. So folks can, you know, listen in or obviously join the upcoming webinar to get the full spectrum of the site. Okay, so one question that we have that is more sort of related to general career pathways. Rebecca, if you want to take this, or I can, or whatever, but are employment first practices, is that the same thing as career pathways? Somebody asked.
I didn't hear the beginning of the question, or what?
Is employment first, is it the same thing as career pathways?
No, that's a fair question, and no, but they're related. So career pathways actually is something that has been around for decades and is a commitment on the part of the federal government. There are, I think, and actually there's a link at the end of the PowerPoint today to the letter that was signed by, I think, 12 or more federal agencies to create career pathways for people in general, that it's a, a path to, that people need more than jobs, but that there needs to be a way to scaffold skills for people so that they can continue to advance in their careers. Employment First refers to public agencies, state agencies using public dollars to promote employment before other things, so that if there's a choice between how the money's used, that money be invested in employment rather than day activities or other programs. So it's really, more a commitment to promote employment for people with disabilities as the first and preferred choice. Whereas Career Pathways is for everyone. Employment First is much more targeted for people with disabilities. And what we've tried to do here, since there have been Career Pathways programs for a while, and WIOA really highlighted the importance of Career Pathways, is that we wanted to make sure that people had resources to make sure that those Career Pathways programs were inclusive. So in whatever jurisdiction that you may be in, chances are your community college offers programs that reflect the high growth, high demand careers in your area. So that it might be in healthcare, it might be in advanced manufacturing or whatever. So that's more the Career Pathways, where there's a chance for you to start off as a health aide and become an LPN and advance to be an RN and advance to be a bachelor's degree RN and those kinds of things, where you'd have that pathway that allows you to scaffold and layer on your capabilities. I don't know if you want to add anything, Nikki.
No, that's good. I want to make sure that we don't run out of time. We've got several questions. Are the roundabouts also used for disability stability pit stops?
For disability, I'm having trouble hearing. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is my phone breaking up?
No, I'll just turn you up.
Oh, okay. So the roundabouts or the traffic circles, are they also used for disability stability pit stops? So are the pit stops also, is there some that reference stability? Stabilization, I'm guessing is what they mean.
Not specifically. Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure. If they're referring to retention, people being able to retain employment?
Yeah, I don't know. Danny, if you want to unmute yourself, that question came from Danny Marquez. If you want to unmute, you could elaborate if you want to. Yeah, we can. Thanks, Danny.
I guess it was really referring to individuals with mental health disabilities that sometimes can be cyclical in nature. So dealing with mental health stability issues on their quest for career pathway work.
Yeah, no, I can see how that's another analogy, another good metaphor for this, because work is so important for people to maintain that stability. So I think it isn't anything that we thought about, but it's another interesting metaphor to think about, because it potentially could help someone stabilize and be able to stay on the pathway. So it's an interesting thought.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you.
Where would benefit counseling be on the roadmap? Is that there?
We have it under capacity building. There it is. So under capacity building, work incentives and benefits planning is there. And it has a little bit on financial planning. The financial capability is more under the youth with disabilities because that's a WIOA requirement. But the work incentive and benefits planning is under capacity building.
I'm seeing a couple of references to the fact that this webinar is difficult with screen readers. Zoom is supposed to be completely accessible, and the PowerPoint was checked for accessibility. So the comment is that testing, on the roadmap before it becomes public. But I think you've already done that, and you said it is accessible on multiple browsers and to screen readers and other types of things. Is that right?
Yeah. We have several people who specialize in that who are making sure that that before it's launched that it's fully accessible.
Okay.
Because we were concerned also with the hovers and things. Sometimes those aren't accessible, but we have been assured that it will be.
Right. And I just deeply apologize. We actually changed from the WebEx platform to the Zoom platform with the understanding that it would be more accessible. So thank you very much for your comments, and we will be sure to take a look at that and see what we need to do to change that next time. And I just deeply apologize. So another question, where would I find resources on disability rights, disclosure of disabilities to employers, and how to ask for accommodation resources?
Okay, all good questions. So under youth with disabilities, there are documents related to disclosure, several documents related to disclosure that that you would find there. I'm trying to think if there's any place that really has rights and advocacy. And the roadmap really was developed more for workforce professionals, although we did talk about in the next iteration, should we be able to do another iteration, that we wanted there to be a portion of this that would be clearly for people with disabilities, advocates, family members. But we really don't have, from a career pathways standpoint, we try to limit the field to what career pathways requires and what might be useful for workforce professionals. So we do have something on disclosure, but not necessarily on rights.
Okay, thanks a lot. Another comment about stability might be a good path on the road. So you'd already mentioned that was something to think about. Will there be a way to search the roadmap using a text search?
So to type in something into the search function?
Yeah.
I don't know. I will find that out before the 20th so that we can answer that question. I mean, I'm assuming since the search function works for the entire website, that we would, but I've never tried it because we haven't been fully live yet. So I am making a note to make sure that that works before the launch, or at least that we can answer that question.
Great. Okay. Another comment, employers need this information too. They have a fear of litigation and don't know what rights and responsibilities they have. So I guess that's more of a comment to make sure that it's broadly marketed and to include the employer organizations as well.
And I think the need technical assistance billboard takes you to a number of places, including the EARN Technical Assistance Center that works with employers, that has wonderful resources for employers and an opportunity for employer to employer dialogue. So I think that there are things on the roadmap that people can direct people to to get that kind of information. There are other TA centers that I know the Assistive Technology Pete Center has some resources that they've developed specifically for employers. Certainly, the Job Accommodation Network has a lot of information specifically for employers. So I think you'd be able to use the roadmap to find resources that that could set employers' minds at ease or help you as a workforce professional to respond to concerns that employers may have.
Great.
These are great questions. Thank you.
Yeah. ADA National Network is a resource too. A few folks are putting in some resources into the chat, like EEOC and JAN and ADA National Network.
And those are all on the KT Consortium, by the way. So those are all in the Knowledge Translation Consortium.
Great. Shannon, are you seeing anything in the chat that I'm missing? We have about 5 minutes. I don't know if there's anybody that would like to unmute themselves and make any comments or ask any questions. Oh, there is another question. What was the, Oh, sorry, go ahead. What was the overall goal for this project?
So that's also a great question. And so we really did want to create a resource in response to what we were hearing from people in the field that could help them find information, resources, guidance, so that they could create or partner with other agencies in career pathways programs or just in employment programs in general. I think as we found ourselves in the field, people are just overwhelmed with the number of resources that are out there. And I'm sure you've all experienced this, and we all have limited time. So we wanted to create something that would be a little more focused and user-friendly and a little intuitive for people to be able to just drill down and find something without having to spend hours doing research. So for people who, like yourselves, who are interested in creating programs that are more inclusive, building career pathways for and with people with disabilities, we wanted to create a tool that could provide that for people who work in the field.
We have a question asking how I can get on a list for future events, and we'll get to that in just a second. Is there a listing of employers who are participating with providing employment for disabled individuals by state?
I mean, it's possible that Disability In would have some of that. It used to be the U.S. Business Leadership Network, and it's now called Disability In. It's an employer-to-employer national organization. So they do some of that work, but maybe, I don't know if someone else on the call has a better answer than that.
I'm thinking the NET also, which is through CSAVR. They, have a wide employer following, and they would certainly know who's working with them.
Right. This is Chris from ODEP. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah. I've been just really enjoying listening. I'm thinking there's probably not just one source, but as you've said, there probably are a variety, and the two that you've mentioned are two very good sources.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and also I've had a little bit of a sidebar conversation with a member of the Chamber of Commerce Board for Disability in the Greater Houston area, which I was fascinated by. So I'm sure, that person would be able to let you know within their area. And I had not actually known that there was, maybe there's other Chamber of Commerce throughout the nation that do have specific disability boards that I'm not aware of, but that I'm thinking that might be another place too. So if anybody else, oh, go ahead. Did you say something?
Should I stop sharing so you can get back to the PowerPoint?
Yeah, go ahead. We can move on because we've just got, I think, another minute. While that's happening, certainly invite anybody to unmute if you'd like to mention a comment or tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. So the official launch webinar, which was already mentioned, when this will actually go live, several people have asked for the link. It will be on the Lead Center website. As you saw, it'll be on the banner at the top, very clearly marked, but it will not be live until this webinar launches. That's the official launch of it. And you have a link here that you can go to, or you can go to the leadcenter.org website also to register for the February 20th webinar, which Rebecca already mentioned quite a bit about that. Shannon, if you want to move on. Okay, we've already had our Q&A, so here are some resources. Again, all of this will be posted on both leadcenter.org and wintac.org, and you can get to this presentation. You can also email us if you would like a copy, and there are several resources that we have listed on here. The Career Pathways desktop guide, the toolkit that was developed by federal agencies. Next, Shannon. That joint federal agency letter that Rebecca already mentioned. There's some Career Pathways checklist. There's some great videos there, and then some other areas on links where there's resources and things on Career Pathways. And if you want to just go to our last slide, it just reminds you again who we are and how to contact us. We'll leave this up for a minute. Please feel free to email any of us with any other comments, questions, and again, a reminder, we really want these meetings every other month to be responsive to your needs. So please tell us what you'd like to hear, what sort of topics you want within the Career Pathways realm. I've got a couple of people saying that they're really looking forward to the release of it and for making accessibility a priority. So kudos there. Okay, well, with that, I think thank you very much, everybody. And again, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we really look forward to hearing from you. And we will be back again with our next meeting 2 months from now. Goodbye, everybody.